Hello and welcome. We are the Schoolhouse 302. I'm Joe.
And TJ.
And this is our hashtag Read This Series. During this series, we feature a few different books that people should read and should have on their library shelves. Over the past few weeks, we've been focused on data. So this night is going to focus on different books that really delve into data in different ways. TJ?
The first book that we want to highlight is called Data-Wise, a step-by-step guide to using assessment results to improve teaching and learning. We talk a lot about organizational leadership and school leadership. If you're running a school and you really want teachers to use assessment data, you want to look at data to drive teaching practices and learning, student learning in your school, you got to pick up Data-Wise. It should be on your shelf in your office.
Thanks, TJ. This past overall feature on data, we talked about thinking big. More data is actually better, but we've also found that people have enough data. It's really how they're using it. So if you have not delved into Victoria Bernhardt's work, this is more like a manual, but this should definitely be on your bookshelf. We've been looking at Victoria Bernhardt's work for at least 16 to 18 years. She is a comprehensive overview of continuous school improvement. This is a must if you're looking at how to improve your overall school performance.
The next one we want to feature is called The 3 Signs of a Miserable Job. One thing that we talk a lot about is organizational culture. This would be great for any organization. Specifically, these three signs. One of the signs is called immeasurement, meaning not using the right data to measure and hold people accountable, and how that can actually decrease morale. The use of data should be a tool to hold people accountable, to show people their progress, and that type of progress actually instills happiness and motivation in the workplace. If you haven't read it, pick it up. It's a fable. It's easy to read. It's a great one.
Pat Lencioni is fantastic, but that also leads us to another book we want to share. This really is about stripping the dread from the data. So when we start talking about things like measurement, sampling, ensuring the correct use of leading and lagging indicators, that world can start to intimidate a lot of people. Charles Whelan takes the mystery out of statistics. He also has a book called Naked Economics, but Naked Statistics really drives into just the basics of stats and how we can easily use them to understand our organization, how to move the organization forward. What's also great is Charles uses a lot of very simple and easy to understand stories, which makes it also a very fast and enjoyable read. So Naked Stats by Charles Whelan is also a must.
Something else we highlighted in the last couple of posts is about thinking about data differently and just looking at different data metrics and what they might mean for your organization. Something that these economists do great, the writers of Freakonomics. It's an oldie but a goodie. If you haven't dug into it, do so. It'll get you thinking about the data that you have in a different way and asking questions like why? Why is that data that way? Thinking about alternative reasons that the data might be that way. They also have Super Freakonomics, so if you've checked out Freakonomics, you can go one step further. Great read, something to do with a team, just to get you thinking differently about the data metrics that you're already looking at.
So that's a lot of books to read. We know that. We're not trying to pepper and overwhelm. We're just trying to help people build libraries of things that they should have within certain topics. However, that does lead us to the Mac Daddy that we recommend, and that's How Doctors Think. Now, in all reality, this is not a book on data, but this past month, we've been talking about unconventional data sources and using them in unconventional ways. Dr. Liz Farley-Ripple from the University of Delaware, who we interviewed a couple weeks ago, stressed that point. A lot of data that's available is often overlooked. How Doctors Think really gets into the minds of doctors. For example, Dr. Grootman, when he writes about how doctors think, actually says that within 18 minutes of a patient talking to the doctor will interrupt the patient and start with the diagnosis. Well, for a lot of times that works. And he talks about the binary process of going through methodically a patient's symptoms, etc., and why that usually is successful. However, he starts to uncover some of, the mistakes that are made, and he has a lot of stories, a lot of research behind this book. This is an excellent read also on how you can communicate with your doctor, but for our intents and purposes, this is to get you out of your normal way of thinking. And this isn't to look at your doctor and how they're thinking. This is to look at how do you perceive the work you do every day and what are you missing. So the unconventional data really is about also unconventional thinking. How can we get out of our own box, our own paradigm, and start thinking differently so we can start reaching and achieving different results? If you're stuck, this is a great book to get you unstuck because it's going to have you thinking differently.
It's great, Joe. I think the key here is that if you're thinking about data, if your organization's looking at data, you got to be reading about data. You got to be reading about how data is used, listening to the experts in the field. You got to think big so that you're taking like these inventories of all the data that you're using. You got to use the right data in the first place. You have to have multiple sources of data, and leadership matters. So we hope you liked our hashtag read this series, all about data. Hope you're building your library. Hope you're following the schoolhouse302.com and enjoying our posts, our podcasts, on our video blogs. Thanks for listening. Thanks for reading.
We appreciate all your support. Let us know what you think. If we didn't touch on something and you want to expand on what we said or what we discussed, or you have a great book you would like to share, we want to hear what you have to say. Have a great evening.